Hey everyone, so here goes with part two of my Ocala news spot for 2018. So from part one, I had 3 cameras out there. It's been about 5 or 6 weeks, so I had a chance to get up and go look at the footage on those cameras. Usually I like to take my laptop with me. That way I can see what the footage on the camera was right there, decide whether I want to move the camera, take the camera out, or just leave it. So I got some good news and some bad news from the information on that camera. And I'll go through that in a minute. But something that I didn't cover in the first part of this video, while I was originally scouting out there, I found these areas of just big piles of pine needles, some bags of trash, a lot of black trash bags in the area. And didn't know what it was. And as I continued to roam around the area, I found this huge, about 6 foot by 4 foot cylinder, part of it made with plywood and chicken wire. This just being crazy and odd, so I reported it to the National Forest officers, and they actually came out to take a look at it. And I'll go ahead and play some video of it right here, show you what it looks like. I took a video of it. So as you can see here, this is just me walking up towards this big cylinder, and you can actually get a permit from the Forestry Service to collect deer moss. Yes, all that spongy stuff all over the floor actually has value to it. Not that it has much value, but it's very popular in use in crafts. And so that's what people were doing here. Is it's just a big cylinder for separating the deer moss from all the pine needles. Kind of crazy thing there. So one of the downfalls, and probably good to report it, was the amount of trash. I'm talking like 3 or 4 full bags of just trash that was left around this. Now this is probably about 400 yards from the spot where I was, and being that it wasn't hunters hunting the area, really didn't think much of it. I went by the deer signs that I was seeing out there and figured when I originally found this, it was late spring, and by hunting season none of that would have really mattered. As I went out and checked my cameras and that, well, it turns out that that was some of the bad news I had. So let me go over and show you what some of that is on my cameras. Alright, so one thing I found is most of the pictures from my cameras were at night for this area. On a couple of my cameras, the little button buck, he'll get bigger. But what daytime pictures I had, besides the fuzzy bunny, I figured if you're going to get your picture taken, you can make it into my video. I also had dogs running around the area. So there's 2 here on separate days. Dogs would come by this trail, probably following the deer scent back in the area. And on one of my other cameras here, well, it's the people collecting deer moss. And so for a couple days out there, I guess they were still hanging out in the area and collecting the deer moss, and this was just going to be probably keeping the deer at bay, especially the dogs running around, the dog scents going through the area. Probably not going to see much there. So pulled out 2 of the cameras, left one up, depending how often they come back and are clearing, collecting this deer moss, and there is a lot of it there. They're in a good spot for collecting it. This could affect how the area is going to be for hunting. So the one camera will give me an idea of what's going on there. But so I left this little location here, and I kind of went back out to where I started scouting this area and actually went across the road. And across the road, there wasn't a lot of areas to really push in there, and I just figured I'll just start, trudging through the thick brush, trying to find some little areas to walk along. On Google Earth, I had marked a few areas. They're about 400 or 500 yards up into this. And I figured I'd just press through. I had them marked on my GPS. And as I got into, where I was looking at, I did come across a nice area, actually 2 of them, that opened up, about 40, 50 yard areas that just opened up in the middle of all this heavy, thick cover, which was having a lot of deer runs. Now, it had rained the day before, and there was still a fair amount of tracks going all through this area for just a short time. Even busted out one big deer out of there. Didn't see if it was a buck or a doe, but it was a good sized deer that busted out of there. And so I figured I'd put one of the cameras I took from my other spot, hung them up there, so I got that, marked that area on my GPS, And instead of backtracking out the way I came in, there was a lot of good deer sign on the way I went in, so I didn't really want to disturb those travel patterns. So I kind of made a 90-degree turn and just headed out in that direction from that spot to see if, one, I could find a little bit easier trail to make my way back there, and also get off of the heavily used deer runs in that I came in on. So as I pushed out there some more, I came across another area that opened up, actually quite large, 250, 300 yards, big opening, kind of like some of the areas I showed you in that part 1 video. And this area opened up really well. And on the south side of it, I actually came across somebody's got their stand still left out there. Took a little video of that, so I'll let you see what the area looks like here. So, after kind of checking the area, checking out my cameras from the one spot, left one up still going to keep an eye on it, but with the activity from the people in there, the dogs running around, don't know what it's going to be like. It's still just first week of August, so that may not have any effect come October, November, once we get into the rut. But I headed out for about the past 2.5 hours. I've been tracking on just some other areas that I had marked. I'm kind of coming back around full circle and came out to this one area. Give you a little bit of a glimpse of it. It's another one of those areas where it just opened up for about 200 yards after being thick. I'm going to pan around a little bit. So as you can see, there's some short brush and just some areas. I came across somebody's deer stand they left out here. Just passing over that there. Seems to be set up in a good spot. I can hear the road, a car on the road from here. So I'm not too far from the road. So even though there was a stand there and I'm going to talk about that stand in a minute, it was on the far south side, and on the north end of this, I walked the perimeter around this area, and there was some deer sign, not as much as I saw in that deep, thick, pocketed area where I left that camera, but there was still some sign there. And on the north end of this, there was some good set of deer runs crossing out of the area. So I thought, I'm going to go up to the north end of this, and instead of using their route and entrance into this opening, I was fairly close to one of the other forestry roads, only about 100, 150 yards. So I just blazed a quick little trail from the spot where I thought would be good to set up a tripod or possibly even a climber in this area. Just blazed a trail out that till I got to the road, marked all this on my GPS, and I'll get back there and do some scouting on it and see if maybe that bigger clearing is a good place to hunt, or maybe I'll blaze a trail back to those small openings deep in the thick areas after I see what's on that camera. So I want to talk a little bit about that stand I found and how they set up. Some of the mistakes I think they possibly were making if they were hunting that area the way I think they were. This is the stand that I was next to when I did that little footage, that filming out in the area. And the arrow is the direction it was pointing. So it was pointing off in this direction. And there's a bit of an old logging trail that cuts through to an area that definitely gets a lot of parking right here. And on this logging trail, approximately where this green dot is, there's a good scrape there. It's still, not even covered with pine needles now. A well-used scrape. And it seemed like they were hunting on that scrape. They were less than 100 yards from it, probably only about 60, 70 yards from the scrape itself. And they're almost hunting as if, for the deer to go into this or out of this. And one of the big issues with that is, if you're parking here, and this is possibly the area that the deer are walking in and out of, you're liable to put some scent down on that. You're liable to get them busted out of there. And I think an alternative is if you really did want to hunt this opening here is, as I mentioned in the video, the road was only about 100 yards through the brush this way, maybe not even that far. And it'd be worthwhile just to, blaze a trail out to that road, that forestry road, and park on that side, and come in this way and set up on this area. Or the other alternative, if you really wanted to park there, was just to move down to the opposite side, which is the area that I'm looking to scout, where there was also some deer activity on the complete, opposite end. It's a longer walk, of course, but you're not hunting the area that you're tracking back and forth over. So that's just something I wanted to point out as you guys are doing your own scouting. It's worthwhile cutting your own trails if it's possible, if it's not too much work, and don't stomp over the areas or park in the areas in which the deer are using as their travel routes. As you can see, the date on this one's fairly accurate. It's a really good spot for doe families. I get a lot of that coming through here. If you find the does, you're going to find the bucks. It's nighttime and a daytime area for these deer. Just kind of going through them really quick just to show you the amount of activity that goes through this area. It's pretty well used, even by the bears. Oh, look at that little fawn. Look at that, June 14th, still got a lot of spots. Tiny little thing. But as we got closer to the end of July actually, you see I get a lot of pictures off of this day and night. So I have some really good news for this spot. Lots of pictures. Where is our fella? There he is. So this guy's got a decent amount of rack growing already. He's still rounded at the top, so he's got a little more growing to do. As you can see, this is July 20th. And he spent a little time in this area for that day, moving around quite a bit. There must have been something good for them to eat in there. So hopefully that camera will pick him up, or maybe some other bucks in that area. Just wanted to share that old spot with you since I was making a video. And I'll let you guys know how part 3 goes.